Hi folks, in this video we're going to be looking at price elasticity of demand and everything you need to know about it for the OCR and AQA GCSE economic specifications and for the Edexcel iGCSE. We're going to be covering what we mean by price elasticity or sensitivity of demand. We're going to be looking at why it's important, why we need to know about it, whether we're a consumer or a producer. We're going to look at how we calculate it and also how to draw the curves. If you want to know more about demand, there's other videos in this series, in this playlist, about how to draw the demand curve and what it shows, and also about shifts of demand. So please check those out as well. The law of demand tells us that the quantity demanded of a good or service will vary inversely with its price. What we mean by that is that as price rises, consumers will buy less of a good or service. The quantity demanded will fall, and vice versa. If the price falls, consumers are likely to buy more of it. So that's the law of demand, and it tells us there's an inverse relationship. But what it doesn't tell us, and this is why we need to know about price elasticity, is how responsive that relationship is. Why we need to know about this? Well, as consumers, it's because price elasticity affects our utility, it affects our decision making. For producers, it's exceptionally important because it affects how much revenue a firm will make, and revenue is one of the key contributors to a firm's profit, which is their main aim. We calculate revenue by price times by quantity. So what price elasticity will help a firm or a producer to work out is whether a change in price is going to increase or decrease revenue. And from that, they can then decide what is in their best interests to meet their aim of maximising revenue and maximising profit. To calculate price elasticity of demand, we need just one simple equation, and it's this one here. To work out price elasticity of demand, we need to know the percentage change in quantity of a good or service being demanded, and we need to know the percentage change in price. Once we have those two figures, it's a really simple calculation. Now, one thing that we do need to remember is that price elasticity of demand will always give us a negative figure. The reason for that being that price and quantity demanded work in opposite directions to each other. So if price is rising, is a positive figure, quantity demanded will be falling, will be a negative figure. To work through a quick example here, quite a recent example, the price of petrol increased hugely earlier this year. If the price of petrol increased from £1.50 a litre up to £1.80, we can say, right, what change in price is that? Well, if we work it out, it's a 20% increase in price, okay? What effect did that have on the quantity of petrol that was being demanded? Well, we saw in real life that the quantity that people were buying fell by not very much at all. Maybe instead of buying 50 litres a week, people were cutting back on journeys because of the higher price and were only buying 45. If we work out the percentage change there, that is a 10% fall, okay, in the quantity being demanded. If we put those figures into our equation, the percentage change in quantity demanded fell by 10%, the percentage increase in price was plus 20. We do that sum and it turns out that we've got price elasticity of demand of negative, the negative is really important, of -0.5. What would that mean? Well, using this as an example, that would be good for firms in terms of their revenue. How do we know that? Well, because £1.50 times by 50 litres is less than £1.80 times by 45 litres, which goes back to that. Why do firms want to know about price elasticity of demand? Because it helps them make decisions about their price. So what affects the price elasticity of demand of a good or service? Well, there's two main factors. Well, the first factor is the good a necessity? Do consumers have to buy that good or service in order to survive? In the case of petrol, the way we've built our society is that most people have a petrol or diesel powered car. If they want to travel to work or for leisure, they're having to buy petrol. Because of that, we'd see very inelastic demand. People need that good in order to be able to function in their daily lives. A second factor is whether the good has substitutes and how close those substitutes are. What I mean by that is, are there other things that you could buy instead? If I have a petrol powered car, I can't decide that petrol is too expensive and pour Ribena into it instead because it's cheaper. It simply wouldn't work. The car wouldn't work. So there's no close substitute there. Over time, it might be that I might change my habits. I might find a car that's more economical, more fuel efficient, or I might change where I live or work in order to lower that cost. But in the short term, if there's no close substitutes, it will tend to mean that a good is quite price inelastic in demand. The price elasticity of a good or service will influence the shape of the demand curve that we draw. If a good or service is price inelastic in demand, then our demand curve is going to be more vertical. It's going to look more like an eye. We can get perfectly inelastic demand curves where the curve will be totally vertical, where a change in price will have no impact whatsoever on the quantity being demanded. Now, price inelastic in demand, likely to be with goods that are necessities, have very few close substitutes. And what we can see here is that a rise in price has very little impact on the amount the quantity that's being demanded. So changing price, relatively little effect on the quantity demanded. On the other hand, a price elastic demand curve is going to be more towards the horizontal. In this case here, these are goods that are more likely to be luxuries or are likely to have close substitutes, that a rise in price, people will very quickly move their consumption to one of those other goods and services, and the quantity demanded will fall quite rapidly. Okay, so here what we're seeing is a change in price has relatively larger effect. I hope this video has helped you with your understanding of price elasticity and sensitivity. Please check out some of the other videos in the series, for example, how to draw a demand curve and how to show shifts in demand, and I'll catch you in the next one.